to you live from Nairobi, Kenya. This is TV47 Weekend on this 14th day of January 2023. A very good evening to you and welcome to the broadcast. In the next 1 hour, or basically 30 minutes, I'll be updating you what is happening in the country and even beyond. Now to a top story. President William Ruto, day 2 of his charm offensive in the Nyanza region, was centered in Siaya County, where he was received by Siaya Governor James Orengo. President Ruto has vowed to work with the leaders of the region that is perceived to be Raila Odinga's political stronghold, further pledging development projects worth 3 billion Kenyan shillings. Flora Limuki begins our coverage tonight.
Siaya County was President William Ruto's first stop on his day 2 of the Nyanza region visit. The president, ushered in by Siaya County Governor James Orengo and Senator Oburu Odinga, among other Azimio leaders. The event, which was the homecoming ceremony of ICT Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University, was loaded with political undertones, with Governor James Orengo asking President William Ruto to work with Azimio leader Raila Odinga. According to Orengo, the move, if taken, will ensure that the nation is not divided.
Mr. President, I ask you, in the spirit not of the handshake, but in the spirit of togetherness, I urge you to sit together on the table of brotherhood with your brother Raila Amolo Odinga.
Ruto and Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua have, since the onset of the campaign period, affirmed that there would be no handshake with Raila under whatever circumstances. The president pledging support for government programs meant to grow the economy of a region that has historically complained of marginalization.
Mimi nawahakikishia itawafanyia kazi bila ubaguzi, kila sehemu ya Kenya tutaenda mbele pamoja.
For a very long time, the region has been viewed as a bedrock of Raila Odinga, having largely voted for him in the past 4 elections. However, with Odinga's political career remaining uncertain, Ruto seems to have seen an opportunity to find inroads in the region that has traditionally voted for the opposition leader.
Mimi najua hapa Siaya mlinipatia kura, lakini kidogo, lakini si mbaya.
Senator Oburu, the deep state you are looking for, the real one, ni yenu sasa. Ile ingine ya kibicho ilikuwa fake.
During his visit, President Ruto commissioned the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology Research Hub.
We appreciate the upscaling of research and technology at this university.
The president also visited Kisumu County, where he commissioned the Kisumu shipyard that will enhance transport and facilitate cross-border trade in the East African region.
Now, on a sad note, one person has died while several others are nursing serious injuries as bandits continue to stage more attacks in Kanyuka village in the Laikipia West constituency. The assailants are, however, believed to have come from the neighboring Samburu County, who had raided the village last night for armed robbery.
Simon Wandera, aged 35 years, was allegedly stabbed to death by a group of armed bandits who had ambushed the village, targeting to make away with the season's harvest and livestock. Laikipia County has since been suffering from insecurity issues, despite the establishment of various strategies to combat the situation that might soon lead to economic backwardness in the region. The residents, led by their area member of County Assembly Irene Washuka, have condemned the act while calling on the government to cease threatening the bandits but call for immediate action to save the situation.
Nataka kuuliza Kidiki Kithure, tafadhali. Ligiji, ni uraigwa unasikia ile lugha ninaongea. Tafadhali tuleteeni mkuja mtujegee baraki hapa kwa Kuki Garaman. Watu wetu wataendelea kuwao bakalini. Bakalini.
Usalama, serikali itupe usalama kwa sababu sisi hatutahama Laikipia na hapo ndio kwetu. Iwe baya, iwe nini, hapo ni kwetu. Serikali tu itulinde na iangalie hawa wakora kwa sababu wako na wakifuata watapatikana.
They debate that Laikipia County is a cosmopolitan area where every community deserves an equal opportunity to live and hustle without any uncertainty of their security.
Tunajiuliza swali hii moja. Hawa watu hii nguvu wanatowanga wapi? Mkikuwa kiona na kisu ni shinda, mkikuwa kiona na fimbo ni shinda, lakini hawa ni watu wanakuwa na silaha kila wakati. Huyo mtu aliuawa na fimbo na akapiga visu ya mbafu mpaka akakufa.
Kila kona ya Kenya machinery iko. Tukisema leo hawa watu leo hawatalala, wote watashikwa. Serikali iko na nguvu. Nataka kuuliza hiyo nguvu imeenda wapi? Ligiji, mimi nakuelekeza hii maneno yote. Unasikia ile lugha ninasema. Tafadhalini kujeni Laikipia. Na kama sisi ni kuletwa tuliletwa, tushukuriwe, watu wa Laikipia turudishwe pahali tulitolewa. Tuachie wenye boma kama Laikipia sio kwetu.
This comes in the wake of a new wave of banditry attacks which has claimed over 10 lives just this week, with the government under pressure to find a lasting solution and fast. Already, those affected are said to be fleeing from their homes, a move that could lead to a full-blown humanitarian crisis. Paul Munio, TV 47.
Now, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has affirmed that the government will continue to support and further improve on the already existing initiatives towards addressing the rising cancer burden in the country. This was said as family, friends and fans converged in large numbers at Nyang'ori Boys High School in Vihiga County to attend the funeral service of veteran news anchor Katherine Kasavuli. The veteran newscaster was buried at her home in Zululu Village, Vihiga County.
Katherine Kiza Kasavuli became a household name in Kenya when she emerged the first female news anchor in the country in 1980, gracing various television stations in the country. During her funeral service at Nyang'ori High School, hundreds of people, including political and religious leaders, family, friends and her fans, could not hide their love and affection towards the fallen face of TV news.
So I'm here to attest.
Media personalities who worked with her in different media houses that she served eulogized her as cheerful, caring and professional anchor with excellent diction.
Nilikutana na Katherine Kasavuli 1981. Alikuja pale VOK, msichana mdogo mrembo ambaye anazungumza kizungu kwa sana.
Alikuwa ni kama dada yangu, sababu tulifanya naye kazi, na mbali na kufanya kazi pia alikuwa ni rafiki wangu wa karibu. Tulikuwa tunamuita Kasavu.
Hasa alivyokuwa akituita, akikutana na sisi kwenye corridors, alipenda sana kutuita baby girl. Na tutamiss sana hiyo, na vile vile yale maarifa ambayo alikuwa akitupa pale KBC.
Her friends and family also named her as a caring, generous and devout Christian who had strong character.
Akaendelea na Mungu mpaka wakati alikuwa. Siwezi kuwachokesha. Katherine is my best girl.
Katherine was a media icon and a rare gem, ever ready with an infectious smile and always willing to help.
Na Katherine alikuwa ananiita mwanetu, mtoto wetu. Na last year during my birthday, Katherine alininunulia zawadi. Akaniambia, nyinyi watu wa branding, you are very difficult to please, but I'm going to buy you something. I hope you like it. Nimeibeba hapa mimi leo. Ndio hii. Katherine alininunulia hii na akaniletea ofisini. Katherine, rest in peace.
The TV queen was a single mother and was survived by her son Martin Kasavuli. Katherine died on 29th December 2022 of cervical cancer. Kasavuli was laid to rest at her home in Zululu Village, Vihiga County. Sylvia Nyongesa, TV 47.
And the government now says plans are underway to incorporate cooperatives as part of the beneficiaries of the Hustler Fund program. Now, Cooperatives Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelegui says President William Ruto is expected to launch the new product of the Hustler Fund in mid-February.
So that tomorrow, when this is developed, the new 40s can come up with its own checkbook. They can clear checks. They can have their own central clearinghouse. And that creates the third payment system in this country. They can finance LPOs at the county level in Nyeri. A borrower can go to Nyeri, gets an LPO from an institution in Nyeri, get funded by the local SACCO, and get cleared through that SACCO. That way, we will be able to pool resources, we'll be able to have a central liquidity facility, just like the clearinghouse that we have for banks. And we're not competing with banks. We're just saying, for those Kenyans still at the lower level of our ladder, they have access, they are included, they are part of the financial inclusion bigger plan. Secondly, we are also promoting the Sacco Central. Sacco Central is a digital platform that brings all the SACCOs, whether small or big, into one platform, so that membership are not, members do not abuse the SACCO movement. The free registration and participation in a SACCO is not societies don't lose money.
And into some matters politics, the Kenya Kwanza political outfit could be facing its toughest test yet as the war of words between the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Nairobi Governor Johnston Sakaja morphs into a thinly veiled supremacy battle between Gachagua and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, all whom have expressed interest of becoming the sixth president of Kenya. Flora Limuki now with what experts are saying on whether this could be the beginning of the end of Kenya Kwanza.
An unraveling tension in the Kenya Kwanza coalition between Mount Kenya and Western Kenya factions loyal to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, respectively, have exposed a fragility that could threaten the bond in the Kenya Kwanza coalition, with all eyes now on the August 2027 general election. This simmering tension recently boiled over in Nairobi, where Gachagua publicly opposed Governor Johnston Sakaja's ban on nightclubs operating in residential estates and PSVs entering the central business district.
Hiyo maneno ati ya kutoa matatu nini, hiyo maneno haiwezekani.
But we will decongest the city and we stand firm on that. Nairobi must be a city of order.
The rift, which has now morphed into a thinly veiled ethnic spat, has sucked in leaders from Mount Kenya and western regions. However, Ruto has appeared to be keen to keep both Gachagua and Mudavadi busy by assigning their respective offices seemingly powerful roles in government through recent executive orders. But his persistent courtship of the Western Kenya voting bloc, including Nyanza and the former Western province, also suggests he wouldn't mind building a counterweight to the Mount Kenya influence in the coalition.
If somebody somewhere is thinking that because he fought in Mau Mau and he can come in this country, you don't have somebody who speaks for you, that he can come in this country and tell people here that you tore it this way, there's a constitutional validation of the office of the governor of this country. There are limitations of the office of the deputy president. So you cannot come here and tell people that we shall do the way you want. We can move to Isiolo. After all, when I become the president.
When you create a position of prime minister and a position of deputy president, certainly there's going to be some little friction between the deputy president and the prime minister. This,
plus the rift in the region, has talk of who the region's political kingpin begin after ex-president Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure.
William is done with you. If he had any respect for you, he will not be shifting you from one office to the other. As you go down, leave the Kikuyu community alone.
Although no political promises have been made in public, Gachagua is Kenya's number 2, is seeming heir apparent to Kenya's political throne. On the other hand, however, his Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi made it clear that he has only deferred his presidential dream for the time being.
The president could as well be thinking of making Mudavadi his successor. But if he doesn't want to do to Rigathi Gachagua what Uhuru did to him, then he will stick with Rigathi Gachagua. That means you would be telling Mudavadi, because you are 61, 62 years old, I do 10, Gachagua does 10, then you will never be president of the Republic of Kenya.
Many now seem Gachagua's defiance on Sakaja's policies that have been castigating as being bad for business are a way by the deputy president to warm up to the part of the business community that supported ODM chief Raila Odinga in last year's polls. The move could be seen as Gachagua beginning to create his own support base in the region, considering the fact that President William Ruto managed to create his own support base in the mountain, then as deputy president without necessarily any input by Gachagua. Flora Limuki, TV 47.
And now to matters health, the rise in cases of super gonorrhea in the country has continued to elicit mixed reactions from Kenyans. But do you know what this subtype of gonorrhea is, and should the increase be attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic? Now, our health reporter Elizabeth Atieno spoke to Dr. Gideon Gashihi, a clinical researcher, and filed this report.
Majority of Kenyans, especially those residing in the capital Nairobi, were this week left reeling in shock after the Kenya Medical Research Institute KEMRI reportedly blew the whistle on cases of super gonorrhea being on an upward trajectory. To many, gonorrhea is only known as one of the commonest sexually transmitted infections in Africa, known to affect the mucous lining of the reproductive system. But just what is super gonorrhea? Dr. Gideon Gashihi is a clinician and medical researcher and now explores.
Is a subtype of gonorrhea that is usually caused by gonorrhea, Neisseria gonorrhea, which is resistant to antibiotics. So this is a term that was coined recently by one of the scientists in WHO after emergence of Neisseria gonorrhea, that it was resistant to the ideal antibiotics, that is ceftriaxone.
Gonorrhea treatment has been effective over the years, but of late the disease has become more resistant to current recommended drugs such as ceftriaxone and azithromycin, a situation that has led to the mutation which is said to have caused a disturbing increase in cases of those infected.
The other thing is overuse of antibiotics by those people who can be able to access antibiotics. And the more people use antibiotics, they increase high chances of bacteria mutating. So mutation of bacteria after overuse of antibiotics is another reason.
Gonorrhea is said to have the highest level of drug resistance compared to other sexually transmitted infections such as syphilis.
In syphilis, we use an intramuscular antibiotics that is called benzathine penicillin, usually given for 3 weeks, one injection for 3 weeks. So you get one, and this injection is very painful. So now we don't have overuse of benzathine penicillin, but we can have overuse of ceftriaxone and azithromycin.
In the report released by KEMRI, samples were collected from 379 women. 24 were found with gonorrhea, with one case being that of super gonorrhea. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, gonorrhea is transmitted through sexual contact with the penis, vagina, mouth or anus of an infected partner. Hence, researchers in the country now say sex workers are at a higher risk of contracting the infection.
Commercial sex workers, of course, they're involved in the trade of sex. And being a sexually transmitted infection, then we are saying that they are highly exposed to the bacteria. And therefore, that is why I believe they have high chances of being the victims of the super gonorrhea.
The World Health Organization estimates that more than 1 million sexually transmitted infections are acquired every day worldwide. However, majority, especially women, tend to be asymptomatic, while in men, signs and symptoms like a white, yellow or green smelly urethral discharge that usually appears 1 to 14 days after infection, a burning pain when passing urine, and testicular or scrotal pain tend to exhibit. While in women, the initial symptoms may include increased vaginal discharge or vaginal bleeding between monthly periods.
The gonorrhea itself causes massive inflammation of the linings of the reproductive system, and if you have a fragile reproductive area, then you increase chances of getting HIV, both in male and in female.
If untreated, gonorrhea in men can lead to infertility or spread to the blood and cause life-threatening illnesses such as arthritis. Dr. Gashihi now tells us the situation is worse for women.
So in female, because you say they are symptomatic and they stay for long without developing those symptoms, they will have a complication called pelvic inflammatory disease, which usually causes blockage of the fallopian tubes. And if you block the fallopian tubes, remember the ovary usually produce the ovum, and the ovum has to travel through the fallopian tube in order to meet the sperm. So if you have blockage of the fallopian tube, that is why female now present with issues in infertility. And then they also present with another complication such as ectopic pregnancy. Because the fallopian tube is inflamed, then there are high chances that the pregnancy will actually occur on the fallopian tube.
According to statistics from the Africa Center for Disease Control, in 2020, the world reported an increase in cases of sexually transmitted infections during the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. This was after WHO reported 82.4 million gonorrhea infections among adolescents and adults aged between 15 and 49 years. Since then, speculations have been rife that COVID medication might have played a role in fueling the rise.
In research, we actually usually say a correlation does not equate to a cause. So the fact that this exists when this is occurring does not mean this is actually causing this. Probably what we can relate is other determinant factors of health. So if you confine people, people are staying at home, people are not doing any work, then there is high chances that people are more sexually active than when they were busy and so on.
The World Health Organization also estimates that each year, 374 million new cases from sexually transmitted infections are reported globally, with the youth being at a higher risk as they are sexually active. Hence, abstinence has since been described as the silver bullet in curbing the rise in cases.
So my final message is to the government, especially the regulatory agencies. So they should ensure that we don't have unregulated use of antibiotics. And also my other appeal is for medical practitioners to not necessarily issue out to antibiotics to people who really don't need to use antibiotics.
But there lies a ray of hope for those with a common type of gonorrhea, since it can be diagnosed by testing urethral specimen for men or vaginal specimen for women. Elizabeth Atieno, TV 47.
Well, thank you for that, Elizabeth Atieno. And because it's a Saturday, kindly be careful out there. Now, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, that is KMPDU, says they'll be downing the tools in March to protest the decision by Salaries and Remuneration Commission to suspend parts of the allowances. While rubbishing the decision, the medics warned of dire consequences in the health sector, terming the new rules as retrogressive and unconstitutional. Now, the move comes barely 2 weeks after the union, the Council of Governors and the national government entered into a pact to suspend the nationwide strike called by the medics. Kombo Alfayo with more.
Solidarity forever. We have strictly given the 60 days for compliance to these issues, because there's a lot of frustration from the doctors who have been employed. There's a lot of frustrations from the non-implementation of the CBA 2017-2021. There's a lot of frustrations from the consultants who have stagnated in various job groups in the counties. And we hope that that particular document that the government signs on 5th will actually see fruition.
In its press statement from Lake Naivasha Resort, the Union Secretary General Dr. Rivaji Atela stated they will oppose any attempts to abolish the earnings as they are part of their CBA between them and their employee.
We are giving a warning to SRC that as much as we may give notices to strike and industrial action regarding other matters, but for the matters that are touching livelihoods of doctors and their families, in the issues of collective bargaining that was signed, in a convention of ILO that was ratified in Convention 87 and Convention 98, we will not even give notice.
The union's chair, Dr. Bidan Mwachi, alleged that the move by SRC will see their salaries slashed by over 50%, stating they will not tolerate more harassment from the government institution.
They want to reduce our basic pay by 50% and allowances like risk allowance. We work in very risky environments, yes, and call allowance. They want to scrap all that because it does not make sense to them. They don't come into contact with hazardous environments, so they know nothing. They know the only hazard they're exposed to is AC conditioning in the offices. Kenya has the most lopsided patient-to-doctor ratio. And the only reason why this is running on unmitigated is because our priorities are as lopsided as the ratios themselves. We have, but it varies from county to county.
According to KMPDU, the high cases of death and medical negligence in the country, it's due to failure by the governments to employ more medics despite having high numbers of graduate doctors to curb the current crisis in our health centers. Kombo Alfayo, TV 47.
Solidarity forever.
And to some matters education, the ongoing assessment of the suitability of schools to host junior secondary schools has confirmed the fears of many parents, some of whom will now be forced to find new schools for their children joining junior secondary from next week. Now, this is after some schools failed to meet the requirements by the Ministry of Education. Paul Kirobi with more.
With a little over a week to the opening of schools countrywide, a wave of uncertainties looms on the status of preparations for the inaugural junior secondary class. Over the last week, the Ministry of Education has been assessing the readiness of primary schools to host the junior secondary class, the evaluation which has revealed gaps in the preparations, with a section of schools found unsuitable to host the learners for failure to meet the ministry's standards. For instance, parents from 10 primary schools in Mwea West Sub-County have been told to look for alternative schools for their children to join junior secondary schools after the schools failed the Ministry of Education requirements. Mwea West Sub-County Director of Education Paul Kigai has said that the parents have been advised on the schools surrounding those that have not met the requirements so as to avoid inconveniencing the pupils. Speaking during an inspection at Kutu's Municipality Primary School, the education officer noted that some of the requirements is having a big size of land, a modern laboratory, amongst others.
What wetu wanajua, and especially the affected, ndio wajue that come that 30th of January watatakiwa either they move to the school we have recommended, and we still have the choice. In Mwea West we had 10. We had 10 that did not qualify, and we have also given them a choice that at a later date they can always come over, and then we shall still approve the schools once they have gotten the science laboratories and all the other requirements, including land, including sanitation facilities. Yes.
The move has left many parents with more questions than answers on which schools their children will be joining, whether they will be required to pay school fees and the cost implication that comes with the buying new school uniform for their children. This plus the quality of tutors set to handle the learners.
To say that this is the best school in the county, and we also want to be the best school in offering junior secondary. So currently preparations are underway. We are working on the uniform. We are working on the furniture, remaining furniture. We are recruiting teachers. Interviews for new people have been going on, and it is all a system go.
A question that crops up is on what is to become of the schools deemed unfit and the congestion expected in the cleared schools. They are working to ensure that they are well equipped for junior secondary.
We have not increased any coin. We are just going per the coin, per the amount of money that we used to pay to the usual class 7. So we are not increasing anything as far as MBC and Glen 7 is concerned.
After the week-long exercise, the Ministry of Education is expected to come up with an official list of approved schools. Paul Kirobi, TV47.
And leaders allied to the Azimio One Kenya coalition and their counterparts in the Kenya Kwanza Brigade said that difference is assigned to preach peace and cohesion during the burial of veteran journalist Katherine Kasavuli in Zululu village, Vihiga County. And according to them, the Mulembe nation has the advantage of numbers and brains. Listen in. As the close family and friends trooped to the front to eulogize the late veteran journalist Katherine Kasavuli, political leaders joined them, their clarion call being that of uniting the Mulembe nation.
We are many, we are brilliant people. You can see Katherine is one of us, brilliant person. There's no reason why we cannot deploy our demographic power.
Nilichagua mimi kuwa chairman ya Luya. Hapana Luya, tulitoa neno Luya hii, and I want to make correction. Because tuko na communities nyingi sana katika Western Kenya. Kuna Wakikuyu, kuna Wajaluo, kuna minority communities kama Wateso, Wasabot. Tukisema Luya, hiyo ndio kitu ambaye imefanya hatushikane vizuri. Sasa tumeform kitu inaitwa Western MPs Caucus Unit.
Ni vile viongozi wetu wametoka. Sisi tulikuwa kwa Azimio, my deputy president Martha Karua ako pale, huo ndio mimi nilipigia kura, akiendia kuwe deputy president, hako pale, na tukupata.
Even as some used the platform to have their 2027 political cards laid out bare.
Being the first lawyer to run properly, alone, without lawyers supporting me. I'm going to make sure that I bring that shield back home in 2027.
With Azimio la Umoja One Kenya allied leaders stamping their loyalty to their captain Raila Odinga. Led by Vihiga Senator Geoffrey Osotsi, the leaders told off those in the Kenya Kwanza Brigade not to interfere with the house business.
Pili, kwamba yeye hata ingilia upinzani anaanza kununua watu huku na huku. Hiyo tutakataa.
And as curtains come down for President William Ruto's two-day visit to the Nyanza region, the Vihiga leaders now want the president to tour the county, even as they prepare themselves with their wish list of projects they want the head of state to implement.
Ya kwanza, tunataka mambo ya Kaimosi ikwishe. Si ndio? Hiyo university Rais Uhuru Kenyatta aliipatia chata miezi 4 iliyopita. Saa hizi hakuna vice chancellor, hakuna chancellor, hakuna pesa.
And the wonderful world of sports. KCB RFC earlier today ran riot against BAMBA RFC, whom they thrashed 80-10 in the National Rugby Sevens League Kenya Cup tie to extend their winning streak in the current season. Felix Ojo, Peter Waitere, Darwin Mukidza and Michael Kimwele scored tries in the first half to give the Bunkers a commanding 42-7 lead at the interval. Speaking after the match in Makadara grounds, KCB RFC coach Mariko Mushila lauded his players for registering the good results, adding that they intend to remain consistent in their bid to lift the title. KCB currently sit at the summit of the Kenya Cup League standings and are expected to play against varsity sides Strathmore Leos on 21st January.
Yeah, the boys have been working hard during the week, so the confidence is building slowly. As usual, it's one game at a time. So yeah, look forward to next week. We'll prepare for Strathmore just the way we prepare for any other team, big or small. There's no small team in Kenya Cup. So you prepare, you respect your opponent.
And some FKF. Kenya Police earlier today played down to a goalless draw to their counterparts Ulinzi Stars in match day 9 of the FKF Premier League at the Kasavuli Stadium. Now both sides wasted their chances to score goals and take the lead as they shared a point each, while Kenya Police dropped to 10th on the log on 9 points, while Ulinzi Stars remained 4th on the log on 15 points. Elsewhere, leaders Tusker FC were held to a goalless draw with Nzoia Sugar at the Ruaraka Stadium and were forced to finish the game with 10 men after Teka was sent off the pitch in the 59th minute.
In terms of they develop a counter, they made the goal for them to win the game. But you could see Baron a sitter opportunity before we conceded the goal. He had a goal at mercy for him. So it was congratulations to the goalkeeper of City Stars. He saved a pinpoint opportunity for us to make it 2-1. Yeah, and it was consequently we concede from this situation.